Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening and watching Mondays Down South, back with the guys, Cy and Ev. It is a big week, gentlemen, because not only are we getting closer to the NFL playoffs with 7 teams in each division here, which are all still up for grabs, but we're also now moving into fantasy football week with the playoffs starting for many normal leagues, starting with week 13 being the first round of the playoffs for the wild card teams. So what a great way to get back on and start talking fantasy football in the NFL. I'm sure we'll start to incorporate some other sports too here and there, but for now, I believe that is the focus. But guys, I'll kick it off to you, Cy. I'm not sure if you have a hot take to start us off here, but I'll kick it over to you guys.
Yeah, I was kind of deciding between a couple, but I think I was watching the Bills game this weekend, and can you even call it a weekend anymore with the way NFL games are going? On whatever night the Bills played, I guess that was Monday night, I was watching Josh Allen play football, and my hot take, and maybe this isn't a hot take for a lot of people, is Josh Allen is currently a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. I think out of that draft class, like, a lot of people slept on him in particular, including myself. Like, I kept saying, oh, he's got a cannon, but what are the Bills doing? Like, this seems like it's too high to take him and everything of that nature. And he's proving more than most that he was warranted that pick. And I'm so impressed with the way he's playing football. And the way the Bills are coaching the offenses is something special. I mean, I was watching that game against San Francisco, and admittedly, a lot of San Francisco's defense was hurt and everything of that nature, but they're still a good defense most weeks when they have like at least a somewhat cohesive team in there. And the way Allen was picking it apart, he was throwing the ball within 2 seconds of the snap. It just felt like he was getting rid of it. He was playing like a vet in that way. And then when they were getting to him, he was able to expand the plays and pair that all together. And the Bills, with the record that they have and everything of that nature, I started thinking to myself, why do I keep sleeping on him? Like, statistically speaking, the way he's playing on the field and everything of that nature. And I was like, you know what, that's it. Like, I'm done acting like he still has something to prove. He has shown every year growth, and this year it's all rounding out. And now I legitimately believe that he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. As of right now, I'm not saying, that could change, but as of right now, I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And I think I would actually put him over Kyler Murray. I'd put him over Deshaun Watson. And I would even argue that he's playing at the same level as Russell Wilson, who has been getting a lot of MVP hype. But if you look at their numbers, their records, and everything of that nature, you could make an argument that Allen is having an even better season than Russell Wilson. The only 2 guys I could definitively say have been having a better season are maybe Rodgers and Mahomes, and that's about it. So that's my hot take. Josh Allen is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL.
Agreed. I would probably put him at, I would have to say 4 right now. Agreed, behind and narrowly behind Russell Wilson, like you said. I don't know, Zach, what do you think?
Well, I'm glad you brought this up, Cy, because it actually kind of ties into my hot take as well, because I know we have a lot of Charlotte and just Gamecocks and Hokies that watch this show. And so I wanted to pick on the Carolina Panthers because, and the reason why the Bills are a perfect lead into this is because the Carolina Panthers have drafted really, really well over the last couple of years. That's undisputable, getting Brian Burns, who's arguably a Pro Bowler this year, just a couple of years ago. They've drafted very well. But one thing that I would encourage them to do if I'm their GM is to actually go out, use the plenty of cap space you have, and go get a superstar. Like, what are you waiting for? Your team is going to be mediocre for years and years and years if you don't invest in a superstar at this point in time. And the reason why I brought them up is because they're very similar to the Bills in a way that has also drafted very, very well under Sean McDermott. And they go out and they bring in Stephon Diggs, and now they're going to win the division in the AFC East, which is the first time that's ever been done in 20 years. So I guess my question for you, Cy, is do you think Josh Allen is significantly better this year because they actually spent some money on some defensive corners? Like, you're going to overpay for Josh Norman, I hate to say it, but Josh Norman has tangibly made that defense better. Also, Stephon Diggs has made that offense tremendously better as well. Do you think that's the reason why Josh Allen is good, or do you think he just developed year over year into the player he is now?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's more him just developing. I mean, certainly getting Stephon Diggs helps him. And I also have to take a moment and say that I've always been someone who's been hard on Stephon Diggs because I always felt that he got more credit than he deserved in his first couple of years because of how just how good he looked on the field in terms of like flashiness, but there wasn't as many results to show for it as some people would hype him up to being. And I have to admit, I was completely wrong. Like, this season, he has proven that he can be a number one for a team, a team that's willing to use him as a number one. He can do it, and he's been doing it. So, and that's obviously been a huge help to Josh Allen. And it's not just him; it's guys like John Brown that have had great seasons along with them. But I think it's more Allen's development than anything else. And I think in the case of the Panthers, I don't really think I could compare the two, because I think the Bills overall just have a better roster construction. Because the Panthers, if you think about it, wide receivers wise, it's not like Teddy Bridgewater doesn't have weapons. He's got Robbie Anderson, he's got DJ Moore, he's got Curtis Samuel. Like, that's a good offense in terms of the weapons around him. And Christian McCaffrey's been hurt, so let's not forget that. We're talking on the almost MVP of last year has been hurt, and they've been making it work. And even Mike Davis has been playing really well. Go Gamecocks. But I will say the big thing with the Panthers is the defense, and then Teddy getting hurt, and just lack of consistency from Teddy as well. Like, I wouldn't say they're quite on the level of the Bills, because I just think the Bills' personnel is better defensively as well. And I think Allen is a better quarterback than Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, your quarterback's going to make the biggest difference. And when you have a guy who is top 5, in my opinion, in Josh Allen, I don't really think that case can be compared, because they just don't have that kind of talent at the quarterback position. No disrespect to Teddy. I think he can be a productive starter in the NFL, but he just needs a little bit more.
Yeah, and I agree. Josh Allen, I think you can noticeably see the improved accuracy and those types of things, the improved decision making this year. And what about another top 5? Is Stephon Diggs now a top 5 receiver in the NFL? I think you can make a case.
I don't think
I don't think you could do
He's
that.
been a savage this year. He's been a savage.
Look, Stephon Diggs has been terrific. Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, but I thought he was better than Adam Thielen even in the years in Minnesota, and Adam Thielen would put up better numbers. Like, I will say I've been impressed with Thielen. I thought Thielen was going to drop. I thought his stock was going to drop completely this year. He was getting selected in the 3rd round. He was getting selected in the 3rd round, and I was like, Stephon is no longer there to take away that number 1 corner. But albeit Adam Thielen has bounced back, he's a top 5 receiver statistically in the fantasy world. So I guess that argument is somewhat nullified on my end. So if Thielen's able to carry on the successful years, even without Stephon Diggs, who did take that number 1 corner pressure off of Thielen, then that's respectable in its own way. But, like, I guess my point is I thought Stephon Diggs put up better numbers in Minnesota than he did this year in Buffalo, but I could be wrong, especially the last couple games. He's gone off, so I could be wrong on that.
No, Diggs is having his best statistical season ever as the number 1 in Buffalo. But here's the point that I'll make. I think he's proven that he can be a number 1 receiver, and I think he's proven that he can be a number 1 receiver on a winning team, so I don't want to take that away from him. But was he better than the number 2 receiver in Minnesota right now when he was on Minnesota? I don't think so. I think Justin Jefferson, or Jordan Jefferson, as Zach likes to call him, as a rookie in the second half of his rookie season, is showing that the number 2 receiver for Kirk Cousins in that Minnesota offense can be productive even without Diggs there. And Jefferson is straight balling. Like, I could even make the argument that Jefferson is just as good as Stephon Diggs right now with how well he's playing. I mean, it's not – go look at their numbers. Like, go look at what they're doing on the field. Like, Jefferson is straight torching people. That dude's future is, like, limitless. And the other thing I will say with Thielen is his fantasy numbers don't necessarily indicate as much like him overall. I think the reason his fantasy numbers are so good is he gets, like, an absurd amount of red zone targets every week. So, like, a lot of his numbers come from touchdowns, whereas the yardage guy has really been Justin Jefferson on that offense. But focusing on Stephon Diggs, like, I truly believe that, like, even Jefferson can make a case for being as good as Diggs, in my opinion, from what I've seen. And if you want to talk about top 5, there's still 5 guys in the league that I think are better. And, like, definitely guys like Devontae Adams. Michael Thomas has been hurt. Let's be real. When Michael Thomas is playing healthy, he's a top 5 guy. Can you put Stephon Diggs over even a guy like DK Metcalf, who's having a terrific season? I don't know that I could do that. And then, like, Julio's hurt. Like, I think the only reason you can make that case is because of injured wide receivers, maybe. And even then it would be tough for me, because there's still so many great wide receivers in the NFL that are top tier wide receiver 1 kind of guys. So it's hard for me to put weight into that argument.
I think you can make the argument, but I'll pivot into my hot take. And I like that you opened the call with some fantasy talk, because I was going to mention last week, I don't know if you guys felt the same way or were in similar situations. I had like 3 fantasy teams that were in like winning in scenarios going on. It was like the most stressful week of football. You know, we had our things that we do, and like, oh my gosh, and it was just not. I was very stressed on Sunday, and unfortunately, I went into last week with 4 out of 4 playoff teams. I ended the week with 1. I got knocked on all 3 of them. It was an absolute nightmare, and the only one is a co-own with my guy Cy here, which we also actually lost. But so it was by far my worst week of the season. But we carry on. My hot take's actually boxing again. Ironically, 2 weeks in a row we're talking about boxing. But Floyd Mayweather and his team, I'll say his broader team, are the best business people, sports figures as business people that there is right now. I mean, that dude is just brilliant. And one of the reasons I bring this up is because I always wanted, when we were doing top 10 lists, I always wanted to do like a top 10 most ridiculous things I've ever seen in sports. Mainly, I built that segment that I wanted us to do around, if you guys remember from 2 years ago, and I sent you this video the other day, when Floyd Mayweather got paid $9 million to fly down to Japan to fight this like young, like up and coming kickboxer, not even a traditional boxer, kickboxer in a boxing match. He shows up 2 hours late, goes out to fight, just obliterates him in the first round, makes the kid cry, and gets paid $9 million to do it. Like, and then obviously recently it was announced that he's going to be fighting Logan Paul in February, which again, like, he's going to make millions and millions of dollars to go, you know, easily dismantle Logan Paul. You know, millions of people are going to watch, and it's just like, he's brilliant. And the way he boxes, even to protect himself from injury as much as possible, and the way he just, at this point in his career, just books out these fights that are going to give him insane paydays, but he's not going to have an ounce of trouble or risk of getting injured. Like, hats off to this guy, man. He just continues to do it.
I'm not even usually
I know you're a big that guy. Did you see the opening odds to this to the fight?
I did at one point, and I want to say they weren't as tilted to Floyd as like you shouldn't be able to place on Floyd, like, because it's that lopsided in my opinion.
It's minus 3,000 right now for Floyd. That's what it opened with, and Logan's plus 1465 or something. I mean, it'll be so. There's so many questions. It's what weight class are they gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I guess if they fight at full weight, okay, maybe we'll give Logan a no.
I do want to bring something upside to switch points here and to stay on the fantasy side here. And I want to see if fantasy football guy side comes back out, because I'm about to call y'all's team out right here. My bold prediction is that MDS Conglomerate loses this week to Sim Soldiers, not because your team is not better than this team. I mean, obviously, for the audience that is listening, this is our auction league. Evan and Sai's team is the 3rd seed. They're playing the 6th seed. Their team is phenomenal. Now, they lost a couple of guys. I know Will Fuller was a big hit. But Sim Soldiers, if you look at the matchups, very dangerous for y'all. Russell Wilson's playing against the Jets. Jonathan Taylor is playing in a dome against the Raiders. Calvin Ridley's going against the Chargers. Cooper Kupp's going against the Patriots, but he does not have Stephon Gilbert on him. He will be blanketing Robert Woods, who, oh, by the way, you two have. I mean, Travis Kelce's playing Miami and Aaron Jones is playing against Detroit. If I were you guys, I'd be real worried right now, and I just figured I'd bring it up in case you hadn't seen the matchups just yet.
I mean, he's got a good team. I know, knew that coming in. We'll see what happens. That's why we wanted the 2 seed so bad. But I will say, of the line, I don't hate our line. No offense, because I'd rather play your team than the 1 seed. So we'll see what happens this week. But hopefully we can see you next week.
Yeah, I was going to say, I really hope we win this week, because I'll be a lot less stressed next week if we do. Zach conveniently brings up matchups of our team, but over the past 3 weeks, for anyone that doesn't know, Zach has been constantly talking about how he has one of the best records in that league, but how he's very stressed about his team, because a lot of the guys that were anchors for him either have gotten hurt like Dak Prescott or have just kind of fallen off the grid, guys like Todd Gurley. And admittedly, last week was not a good week for us, but if you look at our points that we've been scoring, we have been at the top of the league almost the entire year, and points for, we've been really high. last week was abysmal for us, and this happened to me in 2 leagues where we had Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen going against the Patriots defense, and that was the difference between us potentially getting a bye or not getting a bye, and that was brutal. But I got faith in our squad, man. Like,
we wouldn't have gotten it anyway because both those teams won. Zach, you had a huge week, but Raheem Mostert was the guy that killed me. I'm just so tired of Kyle Shanahan. I'm honestly relieved that my other 3 teams are knocked out, and I can stop watching Raheem Mostert and Kyle Shanahan just completely underutilize him.
I think Mostert will be way more utilized going forward, not because like I'm just hoping for it, but I genuinely believe that like over the past couple of weeks, like especially with the Mullen situation and Mostert coming back from injury, they're struggling to eat, like they've been struggling to ease him in. But I really believe that after the way they lost this weekend, like, and they were playing a Bills team that was like blowing it up in the air, so it demanded them having a receiving back on the ground more. So I expect Mostert to be way more involved.
But why do they not use him as a receiving back? He's like the fastest bell cow back in the league. And he was a wide receiver in college. He has hands. I don't understand it.
Yeah. Well, they have other good receiving backs. I'm not look, like the last thing I'll say
Coleman?
is the last thing I'll say no, Wilson. The last thing I'll say is regarding our team. I'm not going to go into this week stressed. That's a team where I legitimately believe we have the pieces to win any matchup, and they just have to show up. Like it's not even like we really have to change our lineup. Like we know who we need in there. And you're right, losing Fuller was tough, but the rest of our guys, I'm all in on. I expect Keenan and Herbert to bounce back. Our running back tandem is just bossing with Cook and James Robinson, and then of course you got, if Mostert bounces back, then our team there's really no weaknesses in my opinion. So I'm pretty happy with that squad. Besides, I also got my 11-2 team in our home league where both y'all are maybe on the outside looking in, right? Like, you know, so.
Oh, I'm on the outside.
I'm sorry.
I ain't looking in anymore.
I'm on the way outside.
I remember Ev messaged me for our listeners. I made a trade 2 weeks ago where I traded, I think 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, you're the reason I'm not in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ev. I didn't anticipate that being the situation when I made the trade. But basically I gave Patrick, who was on last week, I gave him Justin Jefferson or Jordan Jefferson, and I gave him Antonio
as well.
Jordan Jefferson does well. So Jordan Jefferson, basically he's turned into Jordan Jefferson ever since he went to Pat's team, and Pat ended up winning this week partly because Jefferson had a great week, and as a result, he's in the playoffs and Evan isn't. So I apologize, Evan. But
it's okay. My team didn't deserve to make it. Pat's team can actually. But he lost Gibson, so we'll see what happens. But my team was just scraping by a thread after losing those guys early for the whole season. I don't know how I even got this far. So
I'll try to represent for MDS in that league, though. I think I got a decent shot here. So we'll see what happens.
We got investors to uphold, but I guess we pivot here. I think next week we can do an NBA season preview. Anything on the NBA? I got really nothing on the NBA. I'm just looking forward to getting it started.
I'm so over this Harden nonsense. Like, I'm so over it. Like, every little detail that I see, every little media blurb, every little post is all James Harden, and I'm done with it because for 2 reasons. One, like, I'm just ready for them to sort it out and him be traded at some point because I don't want to keep hearing about this drama. Number 2, I got no problem with them holding out from practice and stuff like that for the sake of trying to get the team to trade and do whatever. Like, stars do that all the time. Like, as long as he reports and plays, that's fine. But what I do have a problem with him is him being a role model for all the kids in the world and like going to strip clubs every single night and like being filmed at strip clubs every single night and skipping practices to go to strip clubs every night. Like, that I can't get behind. And like, I don't want to just sit here and like hear about James Harden all the time when in reality, like, I'm just so ready for him to be traded and just be done with that nonsense. Cause like at the end of the day, I expect it to be some sort of lateral move. I really hope he doesn't end up on Brooklyn. I think Harden is an exceptional player. I actually think he's better than a lot of people give him credit for in terms of my friend circles. But at the same time, like, I just want it to be done. That's the one thing I'll say. I just want to be done with it.
I think Philly needs to make that move, man.
You think Ben Simmons?
Yeah. I think Harden and Embiid would be disgusting.
I love it.
I said the same thing, and if you guys remember Manas or Muskan, I was talking to him earlier. I love bringing up our ex guests on here. It's fun to be able to bring them up into the conversation. But I was talking to him, and he was saying it's more of a lateral move for Philly than you would think. And I argued the same thing. I said Harden with Embiid seems like it would be a great fit. Like, I think they'd play amazing together with Embiid being able to space the floor and Harden having his way, and of course Morey there. But Manas made a good point of saying, like, he could come over there, but think about what they're going to lose on the defensive end that Simmons brings. And then also long-term potential-wise, you have 2 years left on Harden's contract. Do you legitimately believe that Harden and Embiid will win a championship together? If not, why give up a guy that you could keep for the next 5 to however long as a legit start? Even if he never becomes a top 5 player, he's still a top 20 to 25 player, right? In terms of his abilities. Why would you trade that for a guy that might just leave you in a few years if you're not going to win a ship with him anyway, which is a fair argument in my opinion. So, but I could see Philly doing it because Morey loves Harden so much. And I was saying to somebody, and let me pose this question to you guys. If Harden gets traded to the East with Simmons going to the West, which conference is better? Which conference is more competitive?
The West is still competitive, but the East is starting to equalize it a lot more.
Are you sure?
It used to be a non-conversation for almost a decade now at this point, over the West Coast just being way better than the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference has certainly rallied back, but I just love the Denver Nuggets, the Portland Trail Blazers, the Utah Jazz. I love that group, like that 4, 5, 6, 7 seed group in the West more than I do on the Eastern Conference side of things, because that's where you're going to see the Washington Wizards, the Charlotte Hornets, those teams that kind of sneak in at 7 and 8. I just don't trust those teams.
So I like the West being deeper, but if Harden goes to the East, you're looking at Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, James Harden, Kyrie Irving. You're looking at some of the top superstars in the league. I would almost argue it could be more top heavy, whereas the West, you're looking at more evenly spaced out teams in terms of the potential. I'm not big on the Blazers though. Let's just be real here. Their end of the season run was cool or whatever, but I'm so over Dame time and all that stuff because legitimately they went out and got absolutely smoked in the playoffs. And a team with Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, and Nurkic and all these guys was fighting for the 8th seed. They weren't if the bubble didn't happen, they wouldn't have been in the playoffs. A rookie Ja Morant Grizzlies was ahead of that team. Let's not forget that. So I'm not big on them, but a team to watch is the Suns this year because them getting Chris Paul next to Devin Booker with that veteran leadership and Booker developing the way that he does, and DeAndre Ayton, who nobody really seems to be talking about much. Oh, anyway, I digress because I want to do a full NBA preview, so let's not get into it. But I just thought I'd throw it out there. I thought it was an interesting question.
I think competitive is an interesting word because the West isn't competitive right now because the Lakers are so much better than all the other teams. I mean, if there's one team in the West that's the Lakers are the most improved team in the West, and they were already the best team in the West. So it's come on.
So true.
I agree. The West is maybe deeper in terms of more decent teams, but I think the top kind of tier, if you will, is deeper in the East, like you said, Si. I think there's some insane 2-star tandems, and the top 4 or 5 teams are super legit. But
yeah, I think the only other thing to touch on, switching sports, is NCAA football. As you guys saw, the Big Ten just voted to reverse the previous policy of requiring a Big Ten team to compete in a conference game by playing at least 6 games or more. Now, to no fault of their own, Ohio State's in a predicament because they're 5-0, and the Michigan-Ohio State game was canceled due to COVID issues. And so understandably, they're not playing this week, but that does cause quite the dilemma for the Ohio State Buckeyes because before that law was redacted, the conference championship was supposed to be, I believe, Nebraska versus Indiana. Indiana's a ranked team, but they've already lost to, or not Nebraska, Northwestern, I mean. So Northwestern versus Indiana. Indiana's already lost to Ohio State. So, obviously that was a big point of contention. The Big Ten decided to vote to reverse that. So Ohio State is now able to compete in a conference game with hopes that would be enough to get into the college football playoffs. I'm not sure if you guys saw that today or if you guys have any thoughts on it, but I just think it's hilarious, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm having trouble with college football this season. I mean, I think that helps Ohio State, but I don't know. It's just hard. It's been hard for me to get into it. And when it comes down to it, it's going to be a mess of picking who the top 4 should be, especially when it comes to, does Ohio State deserve to get in? So I don't know, Si, what do you think?
Yeah, I echo what Evan says. I don't really have anything additional to add to that. But on a more positive note, welcome to the University of South Carolina, Shane Beamer. We talked about it a few weeks ago. I had to bring it up even for a second for my Gamecock audience that tunes in every week. Guys, we are so ecstatic. Evan and Zach, like we've been, me and my buddies from South Carolina have been messaging like back and forth about how excited we are. Not because I expect him to come in and immediately make us like, some national championship team, but because he is so genuinely passionate about our program. He wanted to come there so badly. He was a part of our program, a decade ago. And it just seemed like the ideal hire for us. Zach and I were talking about a few podcasts ago when we were discussing, the Beamer boys. And also a funny note to you, Zach, is he went out on a press conference and said, yeah, I expect my dad, Frank Beamer, to be involved in some capacity on the like coaching, coordinator, recruiting kind of, or whatever front, like
awesome.
Have some sort of assistant role. And I was like, there's no way Frank is coming out of retirement to be an assistant. But I do expect him to pick up the phone and call Frank. And if he does anything marginally like what Frank did for your Hokie program, man, we are going to be so blessed. So I am so stoked, and just wanted to give a shout out to Shane Beamer and congratulate him for joining my Gamecock football program.
I love it. On the college football note, the other game I wanted to mention, I haven't watched much college football this year, but I did watch Coastal Carolina BYU. Did you guys catch that game? That was a blast.
That was a phenomenal game.
That game was insane. Obviously, I was excited to watch Zach Wilson. I'm hoping the football team gets him, although, as we'll get to, it's going to get harder and harder with Zach Wilson's stock rising and the football team's draft pick dropping. But I was out on Coastal Carolina. They were literally trying to injure him, like the play before halftime. And even into the second half, I think like I could have sworn Greg Williams was coaching and had put a bounty on Zach Wilson's head. But, so I was really hoping that he would get that extra 2 yards at the end and make that crazy comeback at the end complete. But yeah, good game. I don't know if you guys caught that one, but it deserved to be mentioned.
That was a great game, and hats to Coastal Carolina, who were supposed to go up against Liberty, another ranked team, kind of in that FCS territory. And major props to them hosting that. Now, hopefully, at a later point in time, Coastal will return the favor as a nice little thank you play at BYU. I can't imagine there being a similar scenario moving forward. But this Coastal team is pretty solid, and their quarterback played lights out. I mean, it was his moment to shine, and he definitely delivered with that. It's an interesting offense. It's like an option-oriented offense, but they pass a lot more than you would think with those type of schemes. So hats off to Coastal. And on the similar side of things, with teams having random games canceled and trying to restructure, because like they put that game together in 2 days. And I was selfishly hoping that Texas A&M was going to play Ohio State, because both of their opponents had COVID-related issues. So to solve the 4 seed for all when it's all said and done, I was hoping Texas A&M was going to go play at Ohio State and settle that once and for all. But it seems like that was a little bit too complicated, and that Ohio State was hoping that the Big Ten athletic directors would be able to vote in their favor, and they wouldn't have to worry about that.
That would have been insane.
Yeah. That would have been awesome. Anyway, NFL-wise, how do we not start with the Washington football team, man? What a dub. Zach, you called it. I'm sorry, buddy. Even the football team fan over here had no faith, and you called it. So we can't take that away from you. Impressive win. They basically, from my analysis and what I watched, it just seemed like they did a great job of controlling the clock. Their defensive line really, really showed up and made it hard. And the Steelers were really trying to resort to getting the ball out quickly. And your defense was pressing, and it just was a great win. And offensively, you guys controlled the ball a lot. Hopefully Gibson comes back healthy, but good game from Smith to game manage well and then get you guys a dub. So wow, I'm very, very impressed with that victory. That was impressive.
Zach, you want to gloat real quick?
Yeah, I'll quickly gloat. I wish my brothers over here would have listened to me when I was like, I got a strong feeling about the Washington football team. Now, albeit I've had other strong feelings that when they don't turn out, like when I bet on the Atlanta Falcons and try to convince them to do likewise, when Atlanta plays really terribly, you just see those things kind of get swept with the wind. I have a tendency of just not bringing them up again. So this is probably one of the first big ones I've gotten right. But my point was that Pittsburgh does play down to the opponent's competition level. And despite the fact that they're supremely more skilled, and I think they will rebound this week, even though they're playing the challenging Bills. I think that Washington and New York are fighting for that final spot. And you saw last week the Giants taking down the Seahawks in Seattle, which is really challenging to do with or without fans. And so I think the two big upsets were NFC East teams beating these very stable playoff teams year in and year out. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and it's going to be a fight to the finish. I believe New York has the tiebreaker, right, E? Because they've beaten Washington twice. But if I don't trust Colt McCoy, and if Washington can just get one more game than New York, then they're going to the playoffs. And, I mean, that could be an interesting team in the playoffs. Alex Smith has been there before, and that defense is lights out. So that's kind of my thought.
Yeah, the defense has finally gotten it together. Like the first half of the season, it was still kind of, hit or miss coming together. But, I mean, like Montez Sweat isn't that far off like a defensive player of the year level. Like this is 2 games in a row that he ended, last time with an interception on a swat, and this time just I guess he forced the interception. He just didn't get it himself. But, I mean, Montez Sweat and Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, we've seen some of the PFF stuff, is like, what did it say? He's the top interior defensive lineman along with Donald and who's the other huge name?
Bosa.
Yeah. It's like, I mean,
the metric was about speaking on like third down pressure or third down abilities. Like he was right there with like 3 just insanely good defensive tackles, and he's really developed into one of the best too. So,
and I think the week before PFF had him as the number 1 interior lineman, just like on an overall basis. I think probably just for that week, but like, I mean, the defensive line is amazing. Linebackers are playing well. Cole Holcomb out of UNC, pretty good. It's honestly all coming together in the offensive formula. Gibson, hopefully, it looks like he won't play this week. Turf toe can be pesky, but so that's obviously a huge loss because now you're stuck with Peyton Barber. But your boy Logan Thomas, Zach, coming out party for him. He's turned into a real good weapon. I mean, we know what Terry's about. Like the formula's coming together, and just a huge win. I mean, obviously the biggest win I think for the football team in a long time.
And again, I don't want to take the fire away from the football team because they deserve all the credit, but I also don't want to just push the Giants aside because they just beat the Seahawks this weekend and held them to I think what it was like 14 points or something. I can't remember exactly, but it was absurd. They went out there defensively and did amazing. Colt McCoy essentially had to do the same thing Alex Smith did and just game manage, and they did, and they won. So I'm not just going to throw the Giants out of the picture and assume the football team's going to take this, especially with the tiebreak. I really think the Giants clearly are trying to make the playoffs. It's just so funny to think that when you look at it record-wise, if you told me this is what was going to happen, even for the NFC East, I would have never believed it. But I think them being the butt of the joke for the majority of the season has really caused these teams to step up at the end here and make some sort of a statement. Because I don't think we haven't heard nearly as many jokes about the East this week as we have the last 4 or 5 weeks. So in that sense, one heck of a showing from them. And also, not to mention, Jalen Hurts is now going to be taking over for Carson Wentz, which is some big news. And he, in I guess half a game or in a quarter, got some electricity going for those Eagles against the Packers. Made it a 1-possession game for second there, and the Packers kind of ran away with it. But curious to see what the dynamic is there, and curious to see how things go forward. Looking for Wentz, and if Hurts comes out and plays well, who knows if we see Wentz as the starter next year? It's going to be interesting.
So that's too much NFC East talk for me. Let's switch it to another game here.
Hey, the Giants, just to get the last word, the Giants, I've been saying for the weeks, the Giants are actually legit, and Daniel Jones has a chance to play this week. And I obviously think the football team is actually pretty good. And the only other thing I'll say is both new coaches, so it takes some time, obviously, grow into it. And both have that defense-first mentality. The Giants' defense has been amazing, like you said. And when the cold weather starts rolling in, defense starts to take more of a role. And the Giants have been running the ball great. The football team prior to this week have been running the ball great, but obviously Gibson going out hurts. But it's that type of formula works even better as the year progresses. So we'll see what happens. And Zach, I think you're right. They're going to start really going after each other, keep playing well to make sure they're winning these games. But I'll let you pivot off the East, though.
No, that's a good point, especially with the cold weather. Defense becomes more of a priority. That's a really interesting point there. Moving on to Sias Colts, though, with the AFC South matchup being the Houston Texans I believe, hosting Indianapolis, and it came down to, I believe Indianapolis was up for the majority of the game, and they were up 26-20. Houston drove all the way down the field, and they dropped the ball. They dropped the snap with like 3 or 4 yards to go. Something that Deshaun does not do many, many times around, but you have to give the Colts defense credit. Cy, I know you were watching it, probably super stressed out. I'll let you take over. What were your thoughts during, man?
It felt like a must win. It felt like an absolute must win, right? Because if you lose this game, then we get the Raiders, the Steelers, and the Texans again over the next 3 weeks. And, it's not like the Raiders and Steelers are going to be easy wins. It felt like this Texans game was a must win. And admittedly, we had the lead, like you said, for the majority of the game. The halftime score was 24-20, and the final score was 26-20. Think about that. It was absurd. I was sitting here thinking, all right, we're looking good. Like, our defense always plays better in the second half. That's just how they've been doing. Like, they over the first half, kind of figure out what the other teams doing in the second half. They ball out. But even last week when we got smoked by Tennessee, our defense played terrific. I think they let up like 3 points in the entire second half. So all that is to say, that game was a lot closer than it should have been comfort level wise. Like, we definitely had way more opportunities to capitalize that we blew and gave Houston a chance to come win the game. Keep in mind the 26 was because we got a safety on Deshaun Watson in the end zone, and the next drive we had back-to-back false starts and holding calls from our offense to take us out of range to convert and put ourselves up by 2 scores, and we screwed that up, and we just kept doing that in the second half. So offensively, we need to continue to make some adjustments, but admittedly, overall, I'm weirdly enough, even in a really close game, I'm excited about our team going forward because I genuinely believe that there's things to build off of, and I think we had a great showing defensively, and T.Y. Hilton got hot. He the last 2 weeks he scored touchdowns. He's back at him. Like, people were like, yo, T.Y.'s done. No, that's not over. With T.Y. and Pittman playing well together and us using our tight ends the way that they are, and then Jonathan Taylor having a good game the way that he did, I'm excited about our offense going forward. And I think Phillip Rivers has been playing a lot better too. So overall, I'm just very thankful that we pulled that one out because our schedule is not going to do us any favors. And then huge shout out to the Cleveland Browns for smoking the Titans this week and just putting us right back in the first place picture. So I'm really, really, really intrigued and excited to see what happens with that.
Yeah, I think, Houston's not a bad team right now. So going on the road and doing that, not a bad win. Really relieved that Indy was able to cover that. That got very stressful unexpectedly from a parlay perspective. But yeah, in Cleveland, the only other thing I want to touch on from this week, man, Cleveland's a buzzsaw right now. And really Tennessee can be a little hot and cold, but what did they score? 38 points in the first half? I think they heard all that chatter about they can never score more than 20 points. They're just going to run the ball to death and all that kind of stuff. Play action pass. Even though some of those receivers are playing well now, Baker looks good. What's going on in Cleveland? Do we have a I don't know, a AFC conference finals championship game contender maybe emerging? I don't know.
They kind of feel like the Titans of last year if you think about it. Play solid defense, run the ball well, and then let your quarterback make the plays when you're off play action. That's exactly what the Titans recipe was last year, and it got them to the AFC Championship and gave them a run for their money against the Chiefs. So it's kind of crazy to think even it still doesn't feel real, right? It still doesn't feel real that the Browns are now one team that they're really competing in the way that they are. But it's exciting for their fan base and stuff. But ultimately, I'm just grateful. Thank you for beating the Titans. That's all I really wanted. I was everything else, that's all I wanted. So, yeah.
Final game that I wanted to bring up is another AFC game, and the Patriots beating the Chargers. For someone that starts and is so high on Justin Herbert, what happened during this game? I didn't watch it, but I just saw the score go from 7 to 14 to 21 all the way up to 45, and I have no idea what happened.
Well, I think this answers the question on how I blew 3 fantasy leagues in 1 week. Justin Herbert and Raheem Mostert answers that question because I have them on all 4 of my teams. But, it's Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick against rookie quarterbacks. He just does it. The Chargers are a mess right now. It's an absolute mess. I was watching Pat McAfee's show earlier. Apparently, Anthony Lynn, before that game, when the Chargers weren't mathematically eliminated, went into the locker room one time and was like, well, guys, we're not going to make the playoffs. before they were mathematically eliminated, and like gave a speech about how they're not going to make the playoffs. He needs to be fired. Like I mentioned as a hot take, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, the Chargers are just a mess right now. But I mean, it's Bill Belichick against rookie quarterbacks. Even Justin Herbert's can't escape that.
What happened is one coach dominated the other in every facet of the game. And the main point of the game that I want to highlight is special teams. There was 2 special teams touchdowns, and it completely took the wind out of Los Angeles sails in terms of what they were able to do after that. And then defensively, Stephon Gilmore played terrific against Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Whoever he was on, he was doing his thing and he was balling. And then Belichick against rookie quarterbacks is the track record's wild. However, I did not expect it to be to the point where they beat them 45-0 and the Chargers didn't put up any points. I legitimately felt like the Chargers felt like in over their heads that one game and just really didn't play up to what they're capable of playing. And I think part of it was just them being like nervous after that first quarter, because they were, even after the end of the first quarter, it felt like that game was over. So I think they just never really got it back going. But I expect that offense to figure it out. Herbert's too good. Allen's too good. They got too many good pieces around him. And Eckler is the other part that he's working his way back in. So I think they'll get that sorted out. But yeah, it was just straight domination from a coaching perspective. Like I watched that whole game because I needed Herbert and Keenan to have a good week for me to make the playoffs in one of my other leagues, which is super frustrating because I traded for Herbert just a few weeks ago and started him over Ben Roethlisberger, because who wouldn't have started Justin Herbert this week, like given what he's done all season? And of course, that's what happens. So, whatever, it happens.
Don't worry though, Anthony Lynn's taking over special teams coaching this week, so all is clear. Everyone on Twitter was like, "Good. Let's give Anthony Lynn more on his plate," right? So
you really don't like that guy.
I mean, hey, if anyone needs a defensive coordinator, Greg Williams is available.
Jeez. We've said that name a few too many times on this podcast, gentlemen.
Well, the Chargers have the perfect get-right spot with your Falcons, Zach, so hopefully they can right the ship. But that's all I got. Anything else on the NFL before we wrap up this segment here?
Taysom Hill 2-0 against the Falcons. Right at you, Zach.
Yeah, we suck. Time to blow it up.
We'll take Matt Ryan. Send us Matt Ryan, please. We'll take Matt Ryan. All righty, guys. Well, I think that's going to do it for our segment. Ladies and gentlemen, please tune in to our pick segment. We're going to actually be breaking it out this week. So for anyone that's looking into just some betting lines and some perspectives on next week's matchups, week 14, we'll be over there ready to deliver some hopefully good results for you all. Seems like we're figuring it out a little bit on our end. So we'll see what happens. Thank you very much as always. And that was Mondays Down South.